Let's continue practicing diameter evaluation. In this section, we will examine 10 more real-life cases, concluding the topic of diameter evaluation. What do you think of the diameter of this lens? What is your proposed action? In this case, the diameter is too large and we should reduce it by 0.2 mm. The cornea here is almost round. Currently, the total vertical gap is only 0.4 mm and the horizontal gap is 0.6 mm. Both values fall short of our target. By reducing the diameter by 0.2 mm, we gain clearance on all sides. The vertical total will increase to 0.6 mm and the horizontal to 0.8 mm, reaching an adequate fit. What do you think of the diameter of this lens? What is your proposed action? In this case, it is not very clear where the limbal boundary begins at the top. The line where the blood vessels end can be used to determine this. It's also worth noting that due to the significant toricity of this cornea, achieving perfect centration is practically impossible. The current diameter looks acceptable. The cornea is highly elliptical. Vertically, we have a total clearance of only 0.2 mm, which is the bare minimum required to avoid limbal impingement. Conversely, the total horizontal gap is 1.1 mm, which is significantly larger than the target clearance. Our strategy here is to leave the diameter as it is. However, if you encounter an undercorrection, despite a good fit and plano over-refraction, consider a 0.2 mm reduction. It's important to be realistic. If the lateral decentration remains pronounced and the patient suffers from persistent halos or double vision, the corneal shape may simply be incompatible with the lens design. In such cases, discontinuing treatment may be the most professional course of action. As we saw in video number 3, with markedly elliptical corneas, we must find a balance. On one hand, an excessive diameter along the vertical meridian can lead to undercorrection. On the other hand, if we reduce the diameter to free the vertical meridian, we risk lateral decentration due to insufficient lens diameter horizontally. Our goal is to find the sweet spot, where we have enough vertical clearance to achieve the refractive power without sacrificing the horizontal stability needed for centration. What do you think of the diameter of this lens? What is your proposed action? In this case, the diameter is significantly too small. We should initially increase it by 0.4 mm, bearing in mind that an additional 0.2 mm increase may still be necessary. The measurements here are well beyond our target values. The total vertical gap is 1.1 mm and the horizontal gap is 1.4 mm. By increasing the diameter by 0.4 mm, we bring the vertical clearance down to 0.7 mm and the horizontal to 1 mm. If you still observe marked lateral decentration, or if the patient reports persistent halos or double vision, a further 0.2 mm increase is justified. What do you think of the diameter of this lens? What is your proposed action? In this instance, the diameter is normal, but a 0.2 mm increase is allowable if clinical signs dictate. The measurements here are very close to our target values. We have a total vertical gap of 0.7 mm and a total horizontal gap of 0.9 mm. If you observe marked lateral decentration and the patient reports persistent halos or double vision, you have enough room to increase the diameter by 0.2 mm. What do you think of the diameter of this lens? What is your proposed action? In this case, the diameter is too large, and we should reduce it by 0.2 mm. Looking at the measurements, the total vertical gap is only 0.35 mm, noticeably less than our target value. Meanwhile, the horizontal gap is 0.7 mm, just slightly under the ideal 0.8 mm. Because the total horizontal gap is close to target, we have sufficient margin to reduce the lens diameter. By decreasing it by 0.2 mm, we increase the total horizontal clearance to a comfortable 0.9 mm, and most importantly, expand the vertical clearance to 0.55 mm. What do you think of the diameter of this lens? What is your proposed action? This diameter is significantly too large. Ideally, it should be reduced by 0.4 mm, but this is a complex clinical decision. This cornea is highly elliptical. Vertically, the lens is sitting directly on the limbus at both the top and bottom. Diameter reduction of 0.2 mm would be insufficient to clear this. A reduction of 0.4 mm is required. However, look at the horizontal meridian. The total gap is already 0.9 mm, which is slightly higher than target. If we reduce the diameter by 0.4 mm, the limbal gap will increase even further to 1.3 mm. Compounding this is a decentered pupil, which is shifted in the opposite direction of the lens decentration. If this decentration persists, the risk of the patient experiencing persistent halos and double vision significantly increases. As a compromise, you might consider a 0.2 mm reduction instead. It leaves a risk of possible undercorrection due to vertical meridian misalignment, but it can preserve some horizontal stability, one of the difficult situations in lens fitting. What do you think of the diameter of this lens? What is your proposed action? In this case, the diameter is too large, and we must reduce it by 0.4 mm. Here, we see a very tight vertical fit, with a total gap of 0.25 mm. At the same time, the horizontal gap is 0.7 mm. Even after we reduce the diameter by 0.4 mm, we still won't hit our ideal target for vertical clearance. However, that reduction will push the horizontal gap to 1.1 mm, which is significantly larger than target. This is a delicate balance. If this adjustment leads to noticeable decentration and the patient reports persistent halos or double vision, you may have to consider moving back a step, increasing the diameter by 0.2 mm, provided it doesn't cause the lens to physically touch the limbus. What do you think of the diameter of this lens? What is your proposed action? Here, the diameter is significantly undersized and requires a 0.6 mm increase. The cornea is markedly elliptical. Currently, the total vertical gap is 1 mm, already above our target. Furthermore, the total horizontal gap is 1.55 millimeters, which is even further from target. Increasing the diameter by 0.6 millimeters will reduce the vertical gap to 0.4 millimeters, which is significantly below target. The horizontal gap will become 0.95 millimeters, which is slightly higher than target. Once the lens is on the eye, the vertical gap should be evaluated. If it remains at about 0.4 millimeters, nothing further changed would be required. However, if you see undercorrection despite an adequate fit and plano over-refraction, the diameter should be reduced by 0.2 millimeters. If lateral decentration persists alongside patient complaints of halos or double vision, you must have an honest conversation with the patient to decide whether it is worth proceeding with the treatment. The last two videos of the course will be very difficult to analyze. These are for the experts. What do you think of the diameter of this lens? What is your proposed action? It was, of course, a joke that this video is too difficult to analyze. The lens is practically immobile, making this quite a straightforward case. The diameter here is clearly too large and should be reduced by 0.4 millimeters, or potentially even 0.6 millimeters. Currently, the lens is physically touching the limbus at both the 12 and 6 o'clock positions vertically. In the horizontal meridian, the total gap is only 0.4 millimeters, which is significantly below our target. By reducing the diameter by 0.4 millimeters, we reach our exact horizontal target of 0.8 millimeters. However, the vertical clearance would still only be 0.4 millimeters, significantly below target. This is likely to be sufficient. However, if that vertical clearance appears narrower than expected, try reducing the diameter by another 0.2 millimeters. This would push the total horizontal gap to 1 millimeter, which, although slightly larger than target, is perfectly acceptable as long as the lens remains centered. What do you think of the diameter of this lens? What is your proposed action? That was, of course, also a joke. In reality, it is impossible to determine the diameter from a video like that. This is because the last frame was cut. Now let's watch the uncut footage. What do you now think of the diameter of this lens? In this case, the diameter is considered normal. Our measurements show a total vertical gap of 0.6 millimeters, which is slightly under our 0.8 millimeter target, and a total horizontal gap of 0.95 millimeters, which is slightly over target. This combination is acceptable for most patients. If, however, there is pronounced lateral decentration and reports of persistent halos or double vision, it is acceptable to increase the diameter by 0.2 millimeters. This adjustment would tighten the horizontal gap to an ideal 0.75 millimeters, though it would bring the vertical gap down to 0.4 millimeters, significantly below target. In conclusion, it is imperative to remember, if you decide to change the diameter, you must place the new lens on the eye and verify the fit. If the new diameter isn't adequate, adjust again. We strongly encourage an iterative fitting process. If you are unsure whether a diameter should be adjusted by an additional 0.2 millimeters, do it and evaluate the result. If it improves, leave it as it is. If it worsens, simply revert to the previous value. There can be scenarios where all options have been exhausted and the optimal desired outcome remains unachievable. Fortunately, it is a rare event. In such a situation, the conversation must shift to the patient. They should decide if the level of undercorrection or the reduction in visual quality is outweighed by the therapeutic benefits, such as freedom from glasses during the day or myopia control. If the decision is to continue treatment, it is your responsibility to confirm that no serious risks exist, specifically regarding safety in scotopic or low-light conditions where halos and glare could impair driving. Ultimately, each patient's individual circumstances will determine the correct course of action.